Hi, I'm Rob Cosman. Welcome to my shop. I want to show you how to make a sacrificial fence for your table saw. Now, there are times when you actually want to use something like this to protect your original fence. It also gives you some great advantages that I'm going to share with you. I think this is something that you really need to add to your table saw. Stay with us. I'm Rob Cosman, and welcome to my shop. We make it our job to help take your woodworking to the next level. If you're new to our channel, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell, which will alert you whenever we release a new video. Anytime we use a new tool or technique, we'll leave a description down below so that make it easier for you to find. All right, let's get back to work. I'll show you a couple examples of where this really comes in handy. If you're going to cut a tenon on the end of a long board and you're wanting to stand it up like that in order to run it over your blade, most fences aren't very high. And you wouldn't want a fence this high all the time. This is my sacrificial fence. So a couple things I do. I'll show you how it slides on when we actually build it. I want to check and make sure that it's square to the table. I would bring it in, obviously adjust the height for what I want for my tenon. Get that in the right spot. It's going to stand like that. Now it's even better to use another piece like this and just clamp that. And what that does is just give you some reference so that you don't tip forward or back. And then keeping it tight here, you're well away from the blade. And then you would just turn it around and do the other side. A wider piece, you wouldn't need this support piece, but it comes in handy on the narrow stock. There you go. Now, something else you can do with it, and it's going to involve taking the splitter off, but if you've got to cut a very shallow rabbet, or if you use your dado head a lot, you can actually put your dado head on there, and you can cover a portion of it with the sacrificial piece. And I call this a sacrificial addition to my fence, but I actually have this piece of it that'll come off and can be replaced when it gets chewed up. Give me a second to take that splitter off and I'll show you what I mean. Now, if I wanted to cut a very shallow rabbet on this side, and when I say shallow, I mean less than 1/8 of an inch, what I would do is start with my blade down below the fence. I usually bring it over so that it's almost to the far side of the blade. Then turn it on, wind it up to whatever height we want. Now you can go in and adjust your fence to expose that portion of the blade that will allow you to make the cut. And that way you're able to cut a very shallow or up to 1/8 of an inch. It's very convenient. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through how we actually build this, make sure that it stays put, and also so that it stays standing plumb or square to the table. And you'll notice I use 1-inch MDF. Big proponent of that. I think it's a great product. Weighs a ton. But in applications like this, it sure is great. I make this out of 3 pieces of MDF. The only thing critical is that this piece needs to be the exact width of your fence. And we have 4 bolts that run through with some easy to twist knobs over here. And what they'll do, because they sit lower than that top piece, is they'll squeeze the sides of this MDF into here to hold it in position. Okay, I want this to be as long as the fence is, which is, well, I'm going to make it 43. This piece is long enough, and then I cut it a little bit longer than I need so I can come back in and trim the end. I'll get all 3 pieces out of this so they'll all be the same length. Now, might want to use a miter gauge on this, but I've got quite a bit of surface area here. Cut that at 43. Now actually I should just check and make sure that this is square before I go any further. 47 3/4. That's out a little bit, but it's not going to make much of a difference for what we're doing. Now we want these pieces to be 6 inches which I find is a good height, and then we'll measure this piece for the third section. I want to get this one right on, and that looks to be 4. Check it in a few places. I would say that's a strong 4. So I'm going to leave my red line just on the other side of the 4 mark. Now, actually, I want that to be perfect, and that last cut was just a little bit off, so I'm going to go in there and make 2 cuts. And then I'll flip that over and just trim that first cut a little bit better. Now, I should check that with a couple of squares. Ooh, you know what? That's actually a little bit narrow. Shoot, that's not going to work. When I'm tight there, I can still move that. And that means when I put it on and squeeze it, it's not going to be, I'm not going to have nice square sides, so I got to get another piece. That should have been about 4 1/32. Okay, so when I push it like that, it's not moving it over at all, and it's right on. So good. What we need to do now is lay these out, and we got to drill them exactly the same. So when we put them together, everything stays just the way we want it. That doesn't have any. Now we want that rod to go just above here, so when it squeezes, it's pulling as close to even as possible. If we had it up too high, then you don't have as much leverage. So getting it down just above this is ideal. So we'll drill them at 3 inches. I just got to find that center hole, and the nice thing about a brad point, it'll almost take you right there. Now normally I would have something on the bottom side so that this doesn't blow out, but these are fish bits. They're made in Austria, and they're really nice. Now that's MDF, so I would expect a little bit of tear out, but not bad. I just haven't, normally I would come in and we just put this drill press in place, and I would put an MDF top on here, which would give me a 0 clearance at least the first time. A zero clearance support piece. I'm going to mark these bottoms because this is the side that we flushed up. Take these apart. The downside of working MDF is that the inner core tends to be soft. So I find that if you take cyanacrylate, it's okay if you're working like this, whereas when we use, that's going to be on the back side. So that will run on that hard exterior surface, not a problem. But the head of that bolt going down in there on that soft inner core has a tendency to pull it through. So just take some thin, which is the consistency of water. Just run that around the hole and let it soak in. And that will make that considerably stiffer. Almost turns the inner core as nice and hard as the exterior is. Fumes of this stuff are terrible. And you don't want to get on your skin. Then you can take the accelerator and that'll just cause it to, no, this is our front side. This is the side that the stove bolt's going to go on. This is our back side. Now, we're going to squeeze this in between. We'll screw and glue one side. We will just screw this side. That way, as I mentioned, if we need to in the future, if this gets chewed up, we can easily come in and replace it. Now I'm going to go ahead and clamp this in place, drill it, and then glue it and screw it. The problem is if you put glue on there, it has a tendency to slide around. It makes it difficult to hold it in position. And I cut a couple of blocks that are the same width, and we'll just put these in for spacers to make it a little bit easier to hold. Get our other piece. Make sure we've got our marked bottoms down, which is this. We're going to flush that up. This is not life or death, but it would be nice to have it as precise as we can get it. Clamp that and keep it out of the way of my drill. So we'll go ahead. This is the replaceable one. I'm just going to mark these out and kind of figure out how we should do them. So we'll come in here again. If you're drilling here and you're going into the edge of that piece, I would say if you're any closer than an inch, you're going to risk having this split. So we'll come in here. We'll come in a full 2 inches. So 2, and then we're going to come down a ½ inch because we're drilling into 1 inch stock. Do the same thing over here. 2 inch. I should be able to guess ½ inch. And then probably every 6 inches. So we'll do them one at a time and then we'll just move the clamp along. Now this one will stay. We're not going to glue it. Now I find when you're using these tapered countersink bits that you can't drill too deep without stopping and clearing the threads. We want to make sure that that head is well countersunk so it doesn't interfere when we're using this. since I'm just doing one at a time, I don't care about down here. I'm just going to get this flush up along the top. That actually feels pretty good, so I think I can go over 2. It's got to come out just a bit. Okay, so now we'll take these off, flip it over, do the same thing on the other side. And the more I thought about it, I don't know whether we even really need to glue it. As long as we put enough screws in there, the only thing it's doing is holding that spacer. Okay, I'm going to leave those blocks in there just for a second so I put these in place. Hopefully these are deep enough now. Sometimes that cyanacrylate just swelled that hole a little bit. And those carriage bolts have that little square head underneath them, so you want to be able to set that. So I just got a piece of steel here that we can reach down in there. Fit right down over the sleeve. It's nice and snug. Put it right to the end. Now, before you use it, you always want to make sure that it's square to your tabletop. When that is. Now, if it wasn't, at least on mine, I can come in here and with these 2 set screws on either side, I can raise or lower one side or the other and get it perfectly squared up. But now I've got a great auxiliary fence. It gives me full 6 inches to hold anything tall. I can use it sacrificially by having it hide part of a dado blade or a regular blade. Great. Easy to build and easy to replace that fence if I had to. If you like my work, if you like my style of teaching, click on any one of these videos to help take your woodworking to the next level. And I've always said, better tools make it a whole lot easier. If you click on the icon with the plane and the chisel, it'll take you to our website, introduce you to all of our tools, and also talk to you about our online and in-person workshops. Good luck in your woodwork.